Hey Fae folk, welcome back. So for today's video, we're going to be doing a doll ranking, sort of, because instead of focusing on aesthetics like we do 99% of the time when I do rankings on this channel, we are going to be focusing on personality. So if you've been here for a while, you might recall that when I first watched all of the old Gen 1 Monster High media for the first time, I did like a ranking. I had done so many Monster High rankings prior to that where I just looked at the old dolls, and also I've done like G3 as well, but I was just looking at aesthetics, just being like, oh, is this doll pretty? Like, do I not like their design? Blah, 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 blah. But then after I saw all the media, I did a ranking based on the characters themselves and their personality. So instead of looking at their designs, looking at like who they are and what role they play in the story. And now we're going to be doing that for Ever After High because, as I simply will not shut up about, I did recently watch all of the Ever After High media and I really, really enjoyed it. I thought it was like honestly just such an excellent story. So now we're going to be doing a ranking for all of the different characters and I am so hyped to do this. Like, I have so many thoughts that I've been holding in for a hot minute. So I'm really, really glad to finally be able to be doing this ranking. It's definitely one that I have been anticipating. I do need to say, obviously, as with all of my rankings and all of my videos in general, everything I say is just going to be my opinion. If I say that I really hate a character and you love that character, that doesn't mean that you're a bad person or that we can't be friends or anything like that. It just means we have different opinions on different fictional characters, and that is totally chill. So you're obviously free to express your opinions down below in the comments. Just do please be respectful about it. But yeah, there are a decent chunk of characters to get through. I'm not doing like every single character just because I don't feel like that's entertaining or necessary. I'm sort of just focusing on the main characters, or also characters that got dolls even if they didn't have a ton of presence in the show. So that's sort of the vague parameters that we're going with, but let's just go ahead and jump on into the ranking. Okay, so as always, we are using Procreate for the ranking, and the tiers that I have are the same ones that I used when I did the Monster High character ranking. So at the top, we have my favorite, then we have Love Them, They're Chill, Barely Present, which is a tier specifically just because I do think with like the very large cast, obviously this was like originally for Monster High, with the large cast, there are a lot of characters that just like don't really get that much screen time or that much development. And while I don't think it's quite as big a problem as it was in Monster High, it does still apply to some of the characters in Ever After High. So we went ahead and kept that tier. And then we have no, and low key hate them. So we are going to be starting out with Alistair Wonderland, who like, this one's hard because I do feel like in some ways he sort of was on the cusp of being barely present, in the sense that while he was in a decent chunk of like webisodes and movies and stuff, I don't know that we like I I tried to say dove and also delved at the same time and nothing good came out. I don't know that we really got a lot of information about his character. Like, he's definitely quite adventurous, but that's sort of the only character trait I can give to him. That being said, I feel like he was in there just enough for me to go ahead and say they're chill, because the impression that I did get of him was good. Like, I think that what we saw of him was fun. He seems like an interesting person to be around or talk to or just generally know. I just can't rank him any higher than they're chill because I feel like we didn't get that deep into his character, you know? Then we have Apple White, for which I definitely can't say that. She's obviously one of two kind of main characters in the show, so she definitely was present. This is so funny. I'm going to talk a lot this video. Like, be prepared to hear me yapping. I went into this knowing like a little bit about the basic premise for the Ever After High story. Like, I didn't know all the details, but I sort of knew the vibes, I guess you might say. And I went into watching the media fully expecting to just despise Apple White. Like, I fully expected to see her just as someone who's like, oh, well, my destiny is perfect and wonderful and beautiful, so I want everyone to fulfill their destinies because I want mine. And like, oh, well, if yours isn't as nice as mine. But that's not how she was at all. Like, I really think that she was presented as a beautifully complex character because she does want her destiny. She does want to be the next Snow White, but I also feel like she feels some sense of pressure for that, of like wanting to live up to being the next Snow White and wanting to make sure that she is like the best possible princess and then queen that she can be. And then even though she does want to follow her destiny, and I do think that it's obviously easier for her to be like, oh, I want to follow my destiny, than it is for some other characters, we did see that it wasn't purely selfish coming from Apple. Like, yes, there was part of her that was like, oh, I want to be Snow White, like, I want to do this. But she also was concerned a lot with how it was going to affect everybody around her. Like, I don't think, realistically speaking, that her main argument for why everyone should like follow their destinies and do exactly what they're told to do was because she was going to get a good one. I think it really truly was that she bought into the fear and was genuinely nervous that if Raven didn't play her role, then people were going to disappear or their stories wouldn't play out or something terrible would happen. And then when that doesn't immediately happen, she's still like on the royal side, right? Like she is still a royal. She still wants to follow her destiny. She still thinks that that is most likely the right thing to do. But she's open to hearing the opinions of others, and she is open to talking with Raven. And like as the series and everything goes on, I probably should have said spoiler alert. I'm assuming if you've gotten to this point in the video, you realize that there are spoilers potentially. I'm not gonna like discuss any plots in depth, I don't think, but like vague spoilers. Anyway, like you see her grow and she respects Raven's side, and while they never, I feel like, get to the point of 100% agreeing, Apple's never like, oh, Raven's the worst person ever, and like, you know, Raven and that. Like she's so kind about it and she's worried about other people. So I don't agree with her like philosophy. I definitely like agree more with the rebel side of things than the royal side of things, but she wasn't portrayed in the way that I thought she would be. I definitely feel like she was a lot more sympathetic. And again, even when she disagrees, like she's never sitting there like, Raven, shut up, I hate you, you're the worst. She's just like, girly pop, I disagree. I don't think this is going to be good for people. Like I want us both to have the happiest lives possible, but I don't know if what you want is possible. I don't know. I feel like she was quite sweet. All of that to say, I'm not going to put her in my favorite. Just because like I did like her a lot more than I thought I was going to, but I don't think I would call her one of my favorite characters. There's going to be only a few that really make it up into top tier. So for all intents and purposes, realistically speaking, second tier is also really, really good. Okay. Like I know it's second tier, but we need to keep in mind I'm being very selective about who gets to go into my favorite. But yeah, I think that Apple was a lot more sympathetic a character than I expected her to be, and like a lot kinder than I expected her to be, just based off of my like preconceptions going into watching the media. And it was a really wonderful surprise. I thought she was a lovely character. Okay, next up we have Ashlyn Ella, and I was so scared. I didn't know anything about her like going in, just based off of the first little like bit that we saw. It was like, oh, I don't know, like she seems kind of shallow. She's into shoes and nature and like that's it. But obviously as you go along, you definitely get to see more of her character evolve, and you get to see her relationship with Hunter and like her questions about what's right versus what's wrong and like all of that sort of thing. I just don't feel particularly strongly about her, you know? Like I feel like we could get along if we spoke in person. I definitely think she seems perfectly pleasant and kind. I just don't feel as strongly as I did about Apple, so she's going to pop down into their chill. But that's still not a bad category. Okay, then we have Baba Yaga. I did include some of the teachers on here just because, like, they're also characters. She's so hard. Because like we don't really delve into her specifically. I don't feel like I can put her in barely present because she does have a decently significant presence within the media, but it's also not about her, right? Like it's about the generation of students she's teaching, so she's like sort of in the background. That being said, she is like sort of difficult sometimes and definitely is not super sympathetic to a lot of the plights that the students go through, especially when they are not following their evil destinies. So like I'm gonna put her in no, but this is such an interesting thing too. I'm gonna go off on a bit of a tangent. Actually, you know what? I'm gonna hold this off for a specific character. Just I'm gonna go on a rant later, and please know that this also sort of applies to Baba Yaga when I get there. You'll see what I'm talking about. Okay, then we have Mr. Bad Wolf, who like let's be honest, barely present. I honestly kind of debated whether I should even bother putting him in the ranking just because, like, he doesn't really have much of a role in the story outside of showing us that Cerise, like, has a hard time having to pretend. So I'm just gonna pop him into barely present. He is kind of funny the few times he's on screen, but, like, he kind of is barely present. Next up, we have Blondie Locks, though. She was a funky one for me. I don't know why I like her. Like that, I feel like that sounds kind of mean. And I don't mean that in a mean way. I don't mean that like any sort of derogatory way towards her. I just can't pinpoint what it is about her that I think is so like funny and charming, but those are the traits that I associate with her. Like she just seems like a fun, bubbly person to be around. And I can't pinpoint it. Like there are some characters in here where I'm like, oh, this was the moment that I was like, I like this character. I don't have that with Blondie, and I don't have necessarily like the strongest feelings about Blondie. I'm not like ride or die for her like I am for a couple of these characters. But I found her really enjoyable. Like every time she was on screen, I thought that she was fun. I felt like she contributed enough to the story while obviously like not necessarily being a super main character. She was very enjoyable. I'm going to pop her up into Love Them. Oh God, okay, this one's complicated. And honestly, that's kind of a good thing. Briar Beauty. I could not stand her at first. I think like as someone who has always been very introverted, very much like does not like large crowds, does not like parties, does not like extreme sports, like any of that stuff. That's everything that Briar is about. And I just don't vibe with that. Like being introduced to her like right off the bat, I was like, we would not get along. Like I would not be able to handle your energy. I would not enjoy being around you. That doesn't necessarily mean that you're a bad person, but I just can't like keep up with that, right? Like that's just a little too much for me. And I will say that I think as we go on, she becomes more sympathetic because in the order that I watched things, I watched Legacy Day first and then like some of the webisodes. I can't remember exactly because it's like a weird convoluted order that I ended up watching the Ever After High Media in, but I was following the advice of someone on Reddit who was like, hey, this is like the watch order you should do for it to be chronological and for it to make the most sense. And at first, her personality does come off to me as a little bit more shallow, being like, oh, you know, my destiny is that I'm going to sleep for 100 years and like I want to do all the things, like all these crazy things and all these crazy experiences and have tons of parties in the meantime because I'm going to sleep and I'm going to miss out on so much. And it comes across at first as being very shallow. But then as you go through the story, you see that yes, she craves those experiences and she doesn't want to miss out on those experiences. But more than that, she doesn't want to miss out on being with her friends. And especially because not all of her friends are necessarily destined to live like as long as she will be asleep. Like she has a lot that she's going to miss out on experience wise, but I think as it goes on, you see it's more that she doesn't want to lose the people around her. And so she wants to do all these things and have all these parties because she wants to be around her friends as much as possible for as long as possible before she's forced to go to sleep for 100 years. And so that made her a lot more sympathetic to me, realizing that it didn't tie from just like, woohoo, I'm a party girl. It was like, no, I like the people that I'm around. I want to be around them. And then seeing her sort of struggle with, I'm supposed to be a royal. I've said that I'm a royal. Like I've said that I'm going to go through with my destiny, but I don't really know if I want to. And like the role that she plays with like hiding the Book of Legends and all of this, I felt like she became very compelling, which was just so fun to see. Like I loved getting to see her character growth and how she started off as someone who like, again, to me seemed quite shallow and just like not enjoyable. And she definitely still is a little high energy for me personally. But it was so fun to see her grow and so fun to just like see that development and see her like starting to question things and being like, maybe this isn't what I want. I don't know. She had a really well written arc, I think. So she gets to go up and to Love Them, which I'm surprised by, but I'm not complaining. Alrighty, this next one is kind of rough. This is Bunny Blanc, and I want so much more for her. But unfortunately, her entire character to me was I'm in love with Alistair and he doesn't know. Like we're in like a weird like what are we? Like are we friends? Do we have a mutual crush on each other sort of thing? But what bothers me is that Alistair still got to be adventurous. And it's not that like Bunny isn't adventurous, like she's by his side a lot of the time. I just feel like much more of her actions and her dialogue were based around being around Alistair, I don't know how, I can't remember how to pronounce it. I just felt like that was literally her defining character trait. Was like, yeah, I like this guy. And that's all she really got. And I wish that she had had more time to be explored on screen. Like, I just wish that we could have gotten more of her outside of that context. Because obviously it's fine to have a crush. I'm not going to fault the girl for having a crush. but it's just that because she wasn't given that much screen time, that ends up being sort of like her only character trait. And it just didn't work for me. So I'm going to put her into barely present, which hurts my heart, but here we are. Then we have Cupid. And honestly, I feel very similarly towards Cupid as I do about Bunny. And I hate that I have to say that because Cupid is more present than Bunny. I think she got more screen time, if I'm not mistaken. At the very least, I feel like I remembered her more. But her whole thing is that she likes Dexter and she knows she's never going to have him. And I do like that, like a tinge more, because there's a hint of angst there that I do enjoy. But it's just frustrating that you have this character who's like all about love, but I don't feel like it even was portrayed well. Like her whole character dynamic is that she's in love with Dexter again, but it's not even done in like an interesting way that like Cupid would be. I don't know. I just feel like it would have been much more interesting to see her like exploring how to not be in love with Dexter. Like maybe she realizes that he and Raven are meant to be. And so she's like, okay, what can I do with my love powers to not love him, to make myself love someone else? Like, I don't want to feel this way. Or how can I get over it organically? Or I think it would have been really, really, really interesting. There's no way they would have done this. Like, I get that. But I think it would have been so interesting for Cupid to be a way to explore polyamory. Because if anybody's going to be polyamorous, Cupid. Like, come on. I don't know. I just feel like she could have been so much. And I love themes of love, and I love how love can be complicated and messy, and it can add drama to a story. But I just feel like there was nothing there. Like, unlike Bunny, it makes sense for Cupid's whole personality to be love and infatuation. But then we didn't get anything interesting out of it. I don't know. It's just disappointing. I'm gonna put her in there chill because I definitely feel like I remember her more. And I think we saw a little bit more of her potential than Bunny's, but they're quite close to me. They're quite like similar. I don't know. Guys, it's my girl, Cedarwood. I'm gonna spoil it. She's gonna go straight up into my favorite. I loved her so much. She's just such a sweetheart. She doesn't have a bad bone in her body. And like, I know that's kind of a thing. Like, she literally can't lie. That's the curse that's put upon her. And I know that in some circumstances that's very frustrating for her. And she has like a whole, I still haven't finished all of the books, but I've read some of them. And she has like this whole thing about like, am I real? Am I not real? What makes people real? Like, she's just so fascinating and so interesting, and I just love her. Like, she seems so genuinely sweet. I really appreciate the existential questions that she brings up. Like, I think that that's interesting to portray in a character. Also, I I have talked about this before, but I think it is not in a video that's currently up. I, as someone who's autistic, find it very difficult when people like tell lies habitually. And I feel like this might just be harder for people who are neurotypical to understand. But because there is so much like subtext and so much hidden meaning and such a lack of directness in neurotypical conversation, to me, going through life feels like people are low-key lying all the time. And I'm not trying to say that in like an asshole-ish way. That's just how it feels. Like, it genuinely feels like the people around me are just like low-key lying all the time, except they all understand each other, so it's not really a big deal. But I don't get it. And so it's really frustrating. So when people lie more actively, I hate it. It is one of my biggest pet peeves because I can't understand. And I'm like, just tell me what you really mean. Just be 100% honest. I don't care if it's blunt. I don't care if it's rude. I would rather that than a sweet lie. So Cedar, someone who literally can't lie, ideal. Like, we would be absolute besties. I would love being around her. Like, she is blunt sometimes. Sometimes she says things that she's like, I wish I didn't have to say that, but it's the truth and that's all I can say. And I don't have like a literal truth curse like Cedar does, but that's how I feel. Like, I just want to be honest all the time. And sometimes that's blunt, but like, I don't see that that is a bad thing. I don't know. I loved her so much. I related to her. I felt like she was so sweet and so kind and so wonderful. Absolutely going into my favorite. I love her so much. Alrighty, next up we are looking at Cerise Hood, who I think was drastically underused in this story. She, to me, has one of the most interesting backstories Ever After High presents. She's the daughter of Little Red Riding Hood, and that is known. But she's also the daughter of the bad wolf. So like her whole lineage is just like this big secret, and it's like this whole thing, and she has wolf ears and she has wolf powers, and it's like it's just so interesting and so juicy, and especially for a story that is primarily about, is it right to follow your destiny if it helps others versus is it better to forge your own path, and like what's the consequences of doing your own thing. She is so like titular to that theme to me. I think it is absolutely criminal that she didn't have a bigger part in the Ever After High media in totality. Like, she had such main character potential, and she was really cool while she was on screen, but I just don't think that she was nearly utilized enough. I would have been so curious to have seen, if Ever After High had been like allowed to continue and flourish, what they would have done with Cerise, because like the potential is genuinely crazy. She's so interesting. There's so many different ways that her story could go. I can't put her in my favorite just because I feel like we didn't get the development that I wanted. But she's close, and because I can sense the potential, she's going to love them. Because also she's just like quiet and like sometimes a little bit sassy. I don't know. She's a vibe. She's a good friend. We like her. Okay, Chase Redford. I don't really have any opinion on him. He was in one movie and that was it. So like not a lot going on. He inherently has to go into barely present. I really just included him because like he was in a couple of the ships in the ship ranking that I did prior to watching Ever After High. I am going to be doing the second part after I do this because I felt like it would be good to have the character ranking down so that y'all could be like, oh, Rain likes this character. That might make them more predisposed to like the ship or whatever. So I really only included him because some of you guys had brought him up for ships for that video. Otherwise, I honestly probably just would have glossed over him because I feel like that's how little he was present, but barely present it is. Oh, okay, the Cheshire Cat, she's nasty. She's nasty, and she ties in with the thing that I said about Baba Yaga, or started to say. I promise I'm getting there, literally in 1 second. I'm gonna put her into no. The only reason she's not in Low-Key Hate Them, because she's like full villain. Like, she is not good, almost destroys Ever After High, like, not the vibes. The only reason she is not in Low-Key Hate Them is because sometimes she's like slightly funny, and she does sort of turn around from being a little bit neglectful towards Kitty to like being a little bit nicer towards her. So she's got like a couple of redeeming qualities that brought her up. But that brings us to Courtly Jester, who is the character that I would like to highlight for the rant that also sort of concerns these two. I didn't have a pen selected. These two here kind of ties into this because Courtly, Baba Yaga, and the Cheshire Cat, to varying degrees, are all villains within Ever After High, right? Like, in my opinion, Courtly Jester is the most villainous, and Baba Yaga, since she's a teacher, I feel like she's sort of the most morally ambiguous because, like, yes, she's bad, but she's teaching future villains to be villains, so, like, technically she's fulfilling her role. Anyway, to refocus. Sorry, I'm so excited, and when I get excited, it's, like, harder for me to formulate sentences that work, which is not a great trait. But Courtly Jester was my least favorite character in the entirety of Ever After High. I hated her. Every single thing she did made me absolutely crazy. I wanted to just like reach through this like screen and just wring her neck. Like, what are you doing? You're making this so terrible for the characters I care about. So I am going to put her in Low-Key Hate Them because I high-key hate her. However, I think this is such an interesting concept because it brings up the question of like good characters versus well-written characters. Courtly Jester is a bad character. She is evil. She does evil things. She is a villain in the story, and I hate her for it. And that means that she's inherently very well written because she's supposed to be a villain. So the fact that I hate her makes her very well written because it's like, that's the point. I'm supposed to not like her. I'm supposed to be aggravated by her actions. And so I just think that characters like her or like the Cheshire Cat or even Baba Yaga to a certain extent are so interesting to rank like this because it's like, yeah, they have a low ranking, but also they're fulfilling their role perfectly. Like the fact that I'm putting Courtly Jester in Low-Key Hate Them is in some ways a good thing because she's a villain. So like, I don't know, I just think that's very interesting. So I say all that to say that I do think that villainous characters can be slightly harder to rank just because it's like, yeah, I hate you, but you're so well written, but I hate you. I don't know. It's just fun and complicated, and I'm a little bit of a nerd, clearly. Ooh, Crystal Winters is so hard. She is so hard because, like, I didn't hate Epic Winter. I was a little nervous because it's very different than the other like media from Ever After High. It's like sort of a separate story. I didn't think it was a bad story though, and I don't think that she's a bad character by the end. Some of her more spoiled brat behaviors were killing me though, like the not knowing how to tie her shoelaces, not because she has any sort of like difficulty or mobility issue. Like I fully understand there are like reasons why real people might have trouble tying their shoelaces. She literally just like has never had to because she's always had servants to do it. That's why it bothers me. I just want to be super clear on that. So like that's aggravating. But also I do feel like she has a good heart and she learns to tie her shoelaces by the end of the movie and learns to sort of stand on her own. And like I don't think she's a bad person just because she has been a little bit spoiled. I can't rank her super highly, but I'm gonna put her in there chill, which is kind of punny, but you know. Ooh, oh, this is so hard. Okay. 99% of the time, I hated Daring. Also, I cannot with the Charming siblings. Their names, especially Daring and Darling, are so similar. I'm always like, am I even saying, am I reading the right name? Like, what is happening here? Daring. Absolutely insufferable. Obsessed with himself, obsessed with like his princely duties, but not in a way that's like, I want to be a good prince, I want to be good for the people. It's more just like, I'm gonna rescue wenches. Like, he's such a dude, bro, and like obsessed with his face and his teeth and always looking in the mirror. That I could not handle. However, in Epic Winter, watching him like go through the God, I'm not like Snow White's prince. I'm not the prince that fits into the Snow White story. What charming am I? Like, what am I supposed to do? My whole destiny has just been ripped away. And he goes through like the process of basically fulfilling the like beast role for the Beauty and the Beast story. He genuinely was so much better in that movie than in any other piece of media. And it definitely made me like him more. I wouldn't go so far as to say that he's like anywhere close to a favorite character. I still don't even think we would get along because like I know he still is going to be a little self-centered even after everything. But that helped him just enough to get to go into their chill, which is way higher than I would have guessed he would have placed. So good for him for having a little glow up moment. Next up we have Darling Charming. This one hurt my soul. I will say in the books, there's like some stories in the books. Maybe it was just one short story that I liked about her. I can't really remember. She does have charming moments. Charming. God, so bad. I just thought she was going to be a lot more than she was because even not having seen the media, like I said, I knew like some about the story, and I did know about these sort of famous, like she is potentially Apple's Charming. Like I got that, and so I was sort of excited for this like character to be like not conforming to gender roles perfectly strictly and potentially being in a lesbian relationship and all of that. And like I'm not trying to take that away from her. That definitely was still there. I think just because those were the bits and pieces that I had heard, I really expected her to have a much larger role in the story. So, like, she did fulfill what I thought she would fulfill, but just not nearly to the extent that I thought she would. I thought she would be like a lot more of a main character, I guess is what I'm saying. I thought she would be a lot closer to all of the story, where like really she wasn't even in like the first few specials or like the first several like seasons, chapters of webisodes. Like she wasn't introduced right off the bat, and then even when she wasn't necessarily super consistently involved with the main plot. And so it's not that I dislike her. I think what we got of her, I did like. I just thought it was going to be so much more. And so it was really like disheartening to not see that. Like, it just didn't quite live up to my expectations. I think I'm gonna have to put her in there, chill. That brings us to Dexter Charming, who I thought was very, very fascinating. I knew one thing about him prior to going into watching all of the media, and that was that I don't like his design. Especially in doll form. I'm not necessarily vibing with the like 2010s hipster meets royalty aesthetic. It just didn't super work for me. But this isn't an aesthetics based ranking, and thank goodness for him, because I actually think he's a very interesting character. First of all, he is like a little bit of an outcast in the sense that he doesn't really fit in with the rest of the Charming siblings or the Charming clan at large. He's not like super weak or like super cowardly or anything like that, but he just doesn't live up to the standard that his siblings and the rest of his same family present. Like, he just isn't as brave, as bold, as daring as like daring is. But I think he's so interesting because I really love that they didn't go for, oh, let's just make him the exact polar opposite. Like, he is different, as I said, but it's not that he's inherently cowardly, or it's not that like, oh, daring has all of the strength and Dexter has all of the smarts. I do think that Dexter seems like he's a little bit more scholarly than daring is, but he's also still willing to do physical things. Like, it's not like he's, I can't even like take two steps, like, I'm so weak. Like, he's not like that, where I feel like a lot of stories who want to have that sort of juxtaposition will have like the one who's big and brave and physically strong, and then the other who's like meek and small. And it doesn't quite fit that dichotomy exactly. He is less strong physically than daring, but he has strength in other ways that I find very, very fascinating. He's also unique in that he's not that preoccupied with his destiny. He knows he's a Prince Charming. He knows he's going to fulfill some sort of role, but like, he doesn't know exactly what story he fits into, and he's curious about it, but he doesn't have like overwhelming anxiety about it. He's sort of just like, oh yeah, like, I wonder what my destiny is going to be. I hope it's a good one. And I think that's a really interesting trait for him to have. Like, he has this uncertainty, but he's not necessarily burdened by it. And I do think that that shows strength in sort of a different way, like a bit of a mental fortitude. And he also is just very open, and like, he is prepared to hear Raven out and is curious about her views on maybe things don't have to be set in stone, and like, he's willing to break the rules a little bit. Like, I just think he's a very, very interesting character, which I didn't necessarily expect, but I was so pleasantly surprised by. He still can't go up into my favorite because I literally think only one other character is going to make it that far, but he gets to go to love them. Then we have Duchess Swan, who, like, for some reason I expected to be a lot more involved. Really, she wasn't. Like, she was in a decent chunk of the show, but if you look at her actions, like, she really doesn't do anything. She's kind of there. She's like vaguely an antagonist, but I just don't feel like her presence in the story really had much of an impact at all. That sounds so mean, but it just, that's the way it was written. So she's going to go into barely present. Then we have the Evil Queen, very much like Courtly Jester. I did not like her. I'm not supposed to like her. I think she was a very well written character. I think the way that she like follows her destiny, so she's technically doing like the right thing in a sense, but then she overreaches. She wants to be the evil queen, but she wants to be something beyond that. She wants to go into other people's stories and go into Wonderland and like kind of be this ultimate ruler. I think it's very, very fascinating. I think that the way that she was written was really interesting, and she seems very cunning and conniving and just all of these things that you want to see in a villain. So I'm putting her in low-key hate them, but much like Courtly, that feels like praise to me because she's the villain and she did her job well, which is why I don't like her. Faery Good Fairy, was she even in any of like the actual movies? Did she have a role in Epic Winter? I literally can't remember. I know for sure she was in a couple episodes, but she's going straight into barely present. She's only on this list because she had a doll. Like, she was hardly there. Faybelle Thorne, I did not vibe with. She's another antagonist. but I don't think that she does quite as well with her job as like Courtly or as the Evil Queen do. She does villainous things, but honestly, more than seeing her as evil, like I see Courtly and the Evil Queen as evil. They're villains. I see Faybelle is obnoxious, which I suppose is like, you know, another way to write like an antagonistic character. I just didn't enjoy her. I'm putting her in. Yeah, no, I'm putting her in low-key hate them. I just don't mean it as a compliment. Like, every time she was on screen, I was like, I know you're gonna do some fuck shit, and I know I'm not gonna enjoy it. And I just want it over with. Like, I just want to get past the part where you have to be involved. I didn't really like seeing her. I'm sorry. She aggravated me. Giles Grimm, he is very interesting. I actually think like the whole thing with the Grimm brothers is like really fascinating. He definitely is a lot more sympathetic to me than Milton Grimm. He's also a bit like of a wacky character, which I have a slight soft spot for. I'm going to say they're chill, just because, like, realistically speaking, after the first little bit, he didn't have as big a role as I sort of expected him to, but while he was on screen, he was interesting. Gingerbread House. I feel like you got a little bit more detail in, like, snippets here and there where she's sort of like Raven, like, she's expected to be evil and, like, poison people and, like, that sort of thing. And she's like, no, I actually just want to bake my cupcakes. Like, I love baking, but I actually don't want to hurt anybody. Please don't hate me. So, like, there is that, which is nice to see. It's, like, interesting to see that parallel with Raven, but she wasn't nearly as present as she could have been. She technically had a decent role in, was it Way to Wonderland? Or Spring on Sprung? I can't remember which one. I'm foggy already. My memory is not super, clearly. But, like, realistically speaking, she could have been written out and the story would have been fine. So I'm going to put her in barely present. I don't dislike her. I just don't think that she got a lot of screen time that was like her own, that didn't feel like she was just an echo of Raven's feelings, if that makes sense. I wish we could have gotten more Ginger specifically. Holly O'Hare, I'm going to say this about both of the O'Hare siblings because, like, Poppy is also going to be coming up. This is just organized alphabetically because that's how the list was. The O'Hare siblings don't need to exist in this universe. I'm really sorry. It's not that I think that they're bad. Again, like, I don't hate them. They just literally don't do anything. Like, they don't have any functional role in the story that is 100% necessary. You could write them out like that. It would not be difficult. So she has to go in barely present. And I do think there is potential for it to be interesting, like, between the twins. Especially, there's one webisode specifically where you find out that Holly had been told she was born first, which means she inherits the Rapunzel destiny. So she's like, hell yeah, like, I'm going to be the next Rapunzel. Like, this is my thing. And Poppy's like, that's great. I don't want to be the next Rapunzel. Like, I want to do my own thing. And then you find out that it was actually the reverse and that Poppy is supposed to be the next Rapunzel, that she was really born first. And they're just like, let's not tell anyone. Like, no one has to know. No one, like, actually knows who was born first. We can just keep going with what we've been going with because that's what makes us both happy. That was interesting and fun to see. That was the only snippet where they had any sort of, to me, personality or, like, presence. And I wish we could have gotten more of that. Like, it would have been so interesting to see how they would have reacted and how things would have played out if someone had discovered that secret, discovered that Poppy was actually supposed to be the next Rapunzel, and, like, they flip-flopped it. But that never happened, so, like, they were just kind of eh. Hopper Croakington was not the vibe. I don't really love that. I think that he was a weird character. When he's human, he can't talk to girls, especially girls that he finds attractive, without being like, I don't want to say awkward because, like, you can be awkward. I'm awkward, okay? I'm really bad at talking to people. I don't know how to do it. And I don't mean any harm by it. Like, I just am bad at figuring out what to say when I'm talking to people in person, especially if I don't know them very well. So, like, I don't mean awkward in that sense, but I mean, like, he's just really uncomfortably flirtatious. And then he'll turn into a frog because he's so overwhelmed by his emotions. And then he's still super flirtatious. He just suddenly talks like he's writing a poem. So his whole personality either way is that he finds girls hot. It's just sometimes he can treat them with respect and sometimes he can't, and he can only treat them with respect when he's literally an animal. And something about that doesn't rub me the right way. Like, it just feels uncomfortable. I don't really like it. I'm gonna put him in no, because it kind of feels bad to put him on like the same level of like the evil queen. But he did, as a character, feel 100% unnecessary and also just a little uncomfortable. On to Humphrey Dumpty. He's really difficult because he's portrayed to me extremely differently in the books versus in the like animated media. There is the fact that in the books he's a literal egg, like not like this, like he's Humphrey Dumpty, but he looks like this in the show. He's a literal egg, like with legs, little legs, an egg. But also, I just feel like personality wise, they're not quite the same. The only thing the two characters really share is that they're both technologically apt, but even that is like much more focused on in the books. And in the books, he also is very musically inclined. He's a little awkward, but he's very musically inclined. He likes to rap specifically, which feels like he also might have some sort of penchant for poetry because like poetry and rap are realistically decently similar. But in the show, he's like not present at all, right? Like he also has a bigger role in the books. Like he's actively important in the books. There are things that he does that he's the only one who can do it. And then in the show, he's just like sort of a background character who's like a little bit good at technology and like has to face his fears one time in a webisode. So I think I'm going to go with barely present because we're looking at like this version of Humphrey. If we were ranking Egg Humphrey, I'd put him in there too. Hunter Huntsman. Hold on. You know what? I'm amending my earlier statement. He's going into my favorite as well. This man is such a vibe. He's so fun. I think he's like the polar opposite of Hopper Croakington. And again, it's not about his capability to speak to girls, because I understand being uncomfortable and awkward, and like I get that on a personal level. I understand that. But I just think that Hopper is like, oh my god, pretty lady, and like sees just the beauty first. And then even when he is in his frog form and is talking with more eloquence and he's not so tongue-tied, he's so focused on that. He's just like, oh my gosh, so beautiful, wow. Hunter treats girls like people, which should be the bare minimum. But like it's not always necessarily. Like he obviously thinks Ashlyn is beautiful, but he's also drawn to her because he appreciates her gentleness in the way that she like interacts with woodland creatures. Like we see in one of the books, their sort of first meeting, even though it's not technically a meeting. But you know what I'm saying? Like you see where they first sort of cross paths, and the thing that draws him in isn't the fact that Ashlyn is beautiful, it's the fact that she cares about the woodland creatures and that she wants to help them. And like that's just so nice. Again, it should be the bare minimum, but it's so nice to see a male character be attracted to his love interest first and foremost because of her personality. And I do just feel like he treats Ashlyn like an entire human being. He treats her with respect. He appreciates her opinions. Like they're in this together. They're in this sort of forbidden romance, but like it's not something where he's unduly pressuring her, like this is how this is going to go and this is how this is going to be. Like I just really think that he's a really nice, respectable, kind character. He loves helping out. He likes animals. He is an absolute vibe. Honestly, he kind of reminds me with Monster High when in G1 Claude Wolf was written nicely. Because sometimes the writers really were like, I guess he's a misogynist this time around. But Hunter reminds me of Claude Wolf when he's at his best, when he's just like, I want to be such a good boyfriend to Draculaura, except he's like that all the time. He's like, I want to be a good boyfriend to Ashlyn. I want to be a good friend to all my friends and all her friends. Like, he's just such a stand-up dude. He's going to go in my favorite. Then we have Jillian Beanstalk. She's barely present. That's literally all I can say. Like, there's not a lot presented in the media about her. Sadly, similar feelings for Justine Dancer. She had one webisode. I don't even know that she might have made a few brief cameos after that, but like she had one webisode and that's it. 99% of the time, she's not even a character that is on screen or thought of in the writer's mind. So I literally can't put her anywhere other than barely present because I know nothing about her. Ooh, okay, then we have Kitty Cheshire, who's I was scared for a while, okay, because I wanted to love her on principle because she's a cat. And that's literally all it takes. I love cats, okay? I love cats. But initially I didn't like her personality. And I get that it's sort of her whole thing that she's supposed to be an agent of chaos. Like that is her role, that is her destiny that she is stepping up into. So I understand why she is the way she is. But I did just find her very irritating. There were two moments that I think really, really helped. One, this was actually the second time because I read like the books that I've read after I watched all of the visual media. But in the books, we get to see a little bit from her perspective. And I think that that was sort of interesting to get to see like a first person perspective for Kitty and like how she kind of gets bored and she flits from this to that. And she likes causing mischief and like that sort of thing. I think that's a little bit more interesting. Like being able to see it from her perspective did help me feel a little bit better towards her. But what really changed my mind was Spring Unsprung. Spring Unsprung was so good. It might be my favorite movie. Like that one and Way to Wonderland are real close. They're right like this. Like I just thought it was a very well written story. But getting to see Kitty's growth in that movie was especially amazing. And I think it's really cool because you get to see how she is slightly different than her mom, the Cheshire Cat. Like up until that point, she is like chaotic, yes. So there's even like a little webisode where it's like, oh, because she's so chaotic, does that make her a rebel? I would say she's more of a royal because she's perfectly happy to follow in her mom's footsteps, right? Like she wants that destiny. She's down with that destiny. And so you see that and like you see her mom and like causing all this chaos. But I think it's really cool because in Spring Unsprung, you get to see a little bit of a softer side to Kitty where she is the one to be like, this is too far. I love mischief. I love pranks. I love causing chaos. You are doing too much. You are harming the place that I love and the people that I love. And this is not fun anymore. This isn't like a fun prank. This is like actual villainy at this point. And I think it was so impactful and so powerful to see her have that moment, to see that she doesn't want to be a villain. She just likes to like be a little silly goofy sometimes, and maybe she likes to be a little bit inconvenient, but she never actually wants to hurt anyone. She never actually wants her friends to suffer. She never wants things to go so badly that she turns into a villain. And so I just loved getting to see that softer side of her and that, for lack of a better term, more human side of her. I thought that was really, really fun. And I think the writers did a really good job of balancing the chaos of inherently being the Cheshire Cat. And like her whole point is to cause mischief, but then also reining it back and like making that feel realistic and plausible within a person. I think that was very, very well done. Not quite my favorite, but she's up in Love Them and she would be pretty high in Love Them. Lizzie Hart's. Stop. Am I going to put actually 4 in my favorite? First of all, I love her design. Okay. I know this isn't about her design, but like I am a little bit biased because she has such a incredible design. Also, her core doll was the first ever After High doll I ever got. My husband bought her for me. So like I'm a little bit attached, but I also just think she's so interesting. And again, this is where like the books sort of come in and come in clutch. And also Way to Wonderland definitely like sort of helped with that. Her relationship with her mom is so cute. First of all, like that is so, so precious. But again, getting to read some things from her perspective with the books was so helpful in understanding her because inherently all of the Wonderlandians like don't fit in quite right at Ever After High because they're from Wonderland where literally everything is different. The societal rules and the way the world works, everything, like the meaning of the words that comes out of their mouths is different in Wonderland than it is at Ever After High. And with Lizzie especially, we get to see that that is difficult for her. She doesn't understand the translation basically. Like she thinks she's acting in a reasonable way. And so looking at it from an outside perspective, you just see her like yelling and screaming and it's like, girl, calm down. Like, what are you even doing? What are you saying? And then you get to see it from her perspective and it's this confusion of like, this would be normal in Wonderland. I don't understand why this isn't normal here. And also, she's listening to her mom's advice and being like, okay, this is what mom advises. Am I supposed to take this literally? Am I supposed to take this figuratively? How does this work when we're outside of Wonderland? Because I'm trying to follow Wonderland advice in a non-Wonderland world. And just like the insecurity and the fear and the confusion, I also think were things that I felt I could relate to a lot. Again, like communication issues. I'm not great at it. And I just felt like I really understood that aspect of Lizzie's character. And it was so wonderful to get to see her opening up a little bit and like getting to be more vulnerable and being like, okay, I want to follow my mom's advice. I love her. I think she has good advice sometimes, but maybe sometimes I'm interpreting it too literally, or maybe sometimes she's flat out wrong, and it's okay for me to be vulnerable and for me to have these friends. It's just, it's so good. She's going over to my favorite too. I talked myself into it. She's very complex, and I really appreciate that. Okay, we are getting like somewhat close to the end. I'll try to be slightly quicker with some of these. We have the Mad Hatter next. Not necessarily the most present character, because again, he's like sort of the generation that's above the ones that we are actually following. So he's like not main character status. But he's funny, he's funky, he's silly, and also he's a wonderful, beautiful, supportive father to Maddie. So he's going to go into their chill, because like I can't rank him any higher for someone who's realistically not that a part of the story. But while he's there, he's fabulous. And that brings me swiftly to Maddie Hatter, who is by and large my absolute favorite character in After High. I just love every single thing about her. I'm getting like emotional talking about this. She's just such a sweetheart and such a light. Like, she is so happy and so silly all the time. Obviously, there are other Wonderlandian characters, but I feel like Maddie embodies that the most. I love her whole, like, oh, it's not impossible unless I know it's impossible thing. I think that's so fun. The fact that she, like, canonically is just always smiling because there's always something to be happy about, even if the situation is kind of tough. Like, there are very few situations within the book specifically where she's not smiling. I love that for her. I feel like she would be such a joy to be around. She's such a good friend to Raven. She is always so supportive, and she is always there. She's always ready to help in her strange, quirky little way, or ready to just like make a joke to make the people around her feel better. I just genuinely adore every single thing about Maddie. I wish like I could talk to her. I feel like she would be so fun and silly to just like have a little gab sesh with. I will say I think it is literally criminal that a part of her personality is that she always has a smile on her face, and her dolls don't have a smiling sculpt. Criminal behavior. Like, I mean, before the reboot, because I know a lot of characters, if not all the characters, got like some sort of smile after the sort of like, I don't even know if it was technically a full reboot, but like, y'all know what I mean. They gave the characters new face sculpts, the budget dropped, lots of smiles then. But like prior to that, the fact that her dolls come with a neutral expression, I get that that's like the best for selling. Maddie should have had a smile. I love her. There was genuinely no moment, either watching or reading, when I was upset that Maddie was on screen, when I thought she did something that I didn't like. Like, there was no negative feeling ever towards Maddie. I just think she is a light, a joy, a wonder. I can't even come up with words that are appropriate enough. I adore her. She is my all-time favorite Ever After High character. Point blank period. Sadly, I do have to move on though. Michelle Mermaid. She's barely present. I'm sorry. I love me a good mermaid. I think, you know, it would have been cool to get to see more of her, but she wasn't in a whole lot, so barely present it is. Melody Piper, same sort of thing. I definitely feel like she had a slight bit more screen time than Michelle did, but she still wasn't that present. So again, barely present. Okay, Milton Grimm, I find fascinating. I didn't like him. I find fascinating, and I want to talk about this in as sensitive a way as possible. I think that it would have been cool to see more of his and Giles' backstory, because we see just enough to explain why he's such a stickler for the rules. But I would have liked to have seen a little bit more, because I do think it's like a very interesting thing to explore. I will say that right off the bat, he is a super strict rule follower, and it's hard for me to get behind that. Not because I inherently hate rules, but it's like, I don't understand rules that you can't give me a concrete reason why they are a rule. Like the speed limit, at least like around where I am in residential areas, is generally 25 miles per hour because there might be families walking about or kids or pets or whatever. And so it's like, hey, you should be driving slower through this area because it is a populated area. People aren't just driving around here, but people literally live here. Like you're much more likely to encounter pedestrians here. So like maybe let's drive slower so we don't accidentally hit anyone, especially because like, you know how like kids or animals are, they don't necessarily know what's going on around them perfectly all the time. And they might be prone to like run out into the street, and like you want to be driving a little bit slower so that there's a lowered risk of injury to other people. I understand why that's a rule. Super. There are other rules that I don't get why it is a rule. Growing up, like a huge sticking point for me, because I grew up before, like I was a teenager and like questioning things prior to gay marriage being federally legalized within the United States. And I grew up in I'm getting really personal, sorry, but I grew up in a very, very, very religious household. And so I was taught that being gay is immoral and wrong and sinful. And I was taught that gay people shouldn't get married. And I could not understand it because I was sitting there and it was like, no one could give me an answer. It was this rule that I was being taught that gay people shouldn't get married. And I was like, but I don't understand why love is wrong. Like, I can understand why you should drive slow where there might be kids. I don't understand why two adults who are consenting, who are in love, shouldn't be allowed to get married. Like, I couldn't wrap my mind around what was then a rule that I was being taught. So, like, I'm not like, woo, anarchy, like, let's break all of the rules all the time, never follow them. I'm just saying, like, I don't really understand people who are strict, ardent rule followers who will just follow rules without questioning them ever, even if it doesn't necessarily make sense. And that's sort of where Milton Grimm fits in to me. He just is a rule follower. Like, he does not break the rules. And we see in his backstory that the reason is because the one time he did break the rules, his little brother was in a very, very dangerous situation. Giles was in a very, very dangerous situation. And this is the part that I want to be sensitive about because, like, I fully understand that watching something traumatic happen or having something traumatic happen to someone that you love is also traumatizing. Like, I'm not trying to take that away from him. I can understand why he had this experience of being like, I broke the rules. My little brother almost got really hurt. He could have died because of my actions. That traumatized me. And I'm now going to follow the rules forever. But the thing is, while it does make sense for him to be impacted by that and even traumatized by that event, Giles is the one that it happened to. Like, if anybody has a right to be overly traumatized to the point of like becoming a huge stickler, it's Giles because he actually experienced the direct effect. And again, I don't mean that to be insensitive. I'm not trying to say that you can't be impacted by things that don't happen to you. You should be impacted by things that don't happen to you. That's called empathy. Like, that makes sense. But I just think it's so crazy that he's like, okay, now everyone ever needs to follow all the rules no matter what. No one can question anything because something happened to my little brother. And his little brother's like, dude, it's not that serious. I hope that makes sense. I talked a lot about this and I got weirdly personal. I'm sorry. I don't know where all that came from. I know I literally said I was going to stop yapping so hard and I didn't. Anyway, he's going in low-key hate them just because I feel like his backstory sort of helped me understand why he is the way he is, but I needed it to be explored more to like accept who he is. Like, he just was so aggravating and so bothersome. And I don't like when people refuse to question anything. I think it's important to question beliefs and structures and rules. Like, obviously it's important to follow them sometimes, but I also think it's important to question things. He won't do that and it irritates me. On a lot less serious note, Nina Thumbell was barely in the show. So she's going in barely present. Poppy O'Hare is now joining her sister in barely present. I'm like, I just think it's funny. I don't plan to say the things that I'm going to say. I sit here in front of the camera doing these rankings, and the things that come out of my mouth just come out of my mouth, and sometimes it amuses me. Okay, that brings us to the Queen of Hearts, who admittedly was not super present because, again, she's a parent, not one of the main characters. Here's the thing. This woman loves her daughter. And it's so cute. And arguably that is like her most defining character trait, because again, we don't see that much of her on screen. Like, she is not a super present force. She doesn't always give the best advice. She is not always in the right. She's maybe a little bit unhinged. But by God, does she love Lizzie? And I just think it's so precious. So even though she realistically should go in barely present, I'm putting her in there chill, because I just think it's so sweet how she genuinely loves her so much. Okay, I'm not gonna lie, I included Ramona Badwolf specifically because I have beef with her. Even though she was barely present, and that is where she's gonna end up being ranked. I just wanted to be able to talk about this, really. I included her as an excuse to rant. So much for me not talking so much. The whole thing with Little Red Riding Hood and Mr. Badwolf getting together and having Cerise, and like there's like this whole drama there. First of all, I already said that was underdeveloped. Immaculate plot line, not touched enough. I think Ramona's introduction, because she's not a thing until like the last series of webisodes, or like the second to last series. Like, she shows up very late and very, very, very briefly, and it's never really addressed, and it bothers me. It's very much, to me, sort of along the same lines as Rainbow High suddenly introducing the littles, and it's like, just kidding, everyone has a little sibling that you've for some reason never heard about before. Or like in G2 of Monster High, same thing. They introduce all of these random little siblings to everyone without any explanation or personality or anything like that. I don't actually know if she's older than Cerise. It doesn't matter though. The age isn't the like thing that I'm calling out. What I'm calling out is the sudden appearance of a sibling, and especially in this context where like Cerise's very existence is controversial. The fact that suddenly you're going to give her a sister that complicates the story further, because like Cerise is supposed to inherit the Little Red Riding Hood destiny, but she also has wolf traits. So she also could be the next wolf instead, or she could do neither and just do her own thing. I think that's really interesting, but then to have her suddenly have a sister that is like openly inheriting the bad wolf, I just think it's really weird and complicated. And because that storyline, because Cerise's storyline didn't really have a conclusion realistically, complicating it by adding another sibling and then still not finishing the storyline just pissed me off. She's gonna get ranked in barely present because like it's not her fault that she's barely present. I'm just upset with the writers because like, what are we doing? What are we doing adding another character that makes a situation that is super interesting make less sense and then still not like doing anything with it? I'm aggravated. Sorry, we're moving on. Raven Queen, who allegedly, according to a character quiz that me and my husband took, is the character that I'm most like. I don't really see it, but I don't know, maybe that's just me. I thought she was a really solid character. I really liked the like point of contention where she doesn't want to follow her destiny because she doesn't want to be evil, because she's not an inherently evil person. And she's like, I don't want to have to commit these horrible crimes against people that are perfectly nice, that I know are perfectly nice, that I don't dislike in any way. Obviously, like the whole point of the story is that she is a foil to Apple, like she's supposed to be Apple's opposite. But I just think it's really impressive the way that that's done, because much like I was nervous that Apple was going to be super selfish, you could look at Raven's actions and be like, oh my gosh, Raven was willing to risk everything. Like, she could have destroyed other people and she wanted to go ahead and do her own thing anyway. But I feel like when you actually get to see it and you get to see the steps that she takes before getting to that point, the insecurity in her head where she's like, I don't want to be evil, but I don't want to endanger anyone else. And even in the webisodes, like it dives in more in the books, but even in the like show and in the webisodes, you see her waffling where she doesn't sign the Book of Legends, but then she's like, maybe I should. Maybe we should find the real one and I should sign it because I don't want to risk anything happening to my friends. And so it's this amazing writing where she's like, she doesn't want to be forced into this destiny that she doesn't relate to, especially because it requires her to be a bad person and she doesn't want to be a bad person. But then she's like, maybe I should do what I'm supposed to do, and maybe I should be bad because that might actually be what's best for those around me, and maybe that's the lesser of two evils. Maybe that's the only way I can do anything good. She's so complicated, and she's got so many good like internal monologue moments, and I also really 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 love the fact that she sort of heads the rebels unwillingly. She's the first one that we see like actively on screen or on page to be like, yeah, I don't want to do this. Obviously, there are other moments, like there's like some sisters in the books, and there is like Bad Wolf and Red Riding Hood. Like there are other individuals who are like subtly, like sneakily not following their destinies, not doing what they're supposed to do. But Raven like spearheads doing so openly. She's making a stand. She's like, I'm not going to do this. The rules don't make sense. I can't find proof that people are actually going to be hurt. So like I don't want to risk it, but also I feel like it might be worth risking it. Like she is taking this stand, but she doesn't like realize that she sort of accidentally becomes a leader in doing so. And then you get to see her insecurity and being like, I never asked to be like the rebel leader. I never asked for people to be looking to me for advice, or I never asked for people to be like mad at me for this. She's just trying to do her best. And then suddenly this responsibility is thrust upon her. She's so fun and so interesting. She doesn't make me feel the same way that like my favorite tiers do. But she's definitely up there. Very well written. She's going to love them. Okay, Red Riding Hood, barely present. That's kind of all I have to say. Rosabella Beauty is hard because she's also kind of barely present. Like she's really only there in like the later bit of webisodes, and then she's in Epic Winter. But I just don't know that we get a lot of her personality. Like realistically speaking, she sort of just like ends up being a part of the Beauty and the Beast plotline with Daring, but I feel like Daring's element in that is a lot more interesting because it's not the story he thought he was going to be assigned to, and also there's kind of more character growth in the Beast role than in the Beauty role, maybe. And yeah, she's just like, she's definitely not bad. I don't think she's a bad character, but I'm gonna have to, you know what, we're gonna put her in their show because even though she's not on screen a lot, when she is on screen, I feel like she's a nice person and she encourages the people around her to be better. So she gets to bump up just a little. Rumpelstiltskin, I thought, was genuinely the worst. He kind of reminds me of Fabel in that like he is technically a villain, but he's not like a villainous villain that's interesting like Courtly or like the Evil Queen. He's just sort of an annoyance that I'm like, can we just like punt this man over the hedge and not be dealing with this anymore? Especially within his teaching capacities, like the fact that he actively tries to sabotage his students is like Baba Yaga is evil, but she's just trying to help the evil students be evil. So in a way, she's good. Whereas Rumpelstiltskin is like, I'm supposed to be teaching the evil students how to be evil, but also I'm sabotaging them. I don't know. He's just like a little shithead, and I don't really like him, so he's going in and low-key hate them. Snow White, I do feel like is interesting because I feel like she is another one that's portrayed a bit differently in the books versus in the movies. In the movies, she is a bit more almost like girl boss. Like she's running almost like a company sort of situation. And she's like, yeah, I defeated the evil queen. It feels like she's putting a lot of pressure on Apple to be absolutely perfect all the time. Whereas in the books, I feel like she's not precisely airheaded. Like that's not what I'm trying to say exactly. But she's a little bit less of that girl boss. A little bit less active might be a good way to put it. Like she's big on throw pillows and like embroidery, and like there's nothing wrong with that obviously, but it's just hard to rank her because they do feel like not the exact same person. Ultimately speaking, I don't think I just don't really think I have that many opinions on her. She's kind of there, she serves her purpose. I'm gonna put her in barely present because like realistically speaking, I feel like she is more present in the way that her existence affects Apple than she is as her own character, if that makes sense. And then lastly, we are ending on Sparrow Hood, who is a minor irritant. He's not inherently evil. He doesn't really do anything that bad. He's sort of just there a lot of the time. But he does sort of grate on me, and I feel like, I don't know, where like Kitty could be chaotic but charming. Kitty was like causing mischief, but ultimately at the end of the day has a good heart. Sparrow just feels like he's at the just causes mischief. Like Sparrow kind of reminds me of Kitty pre-growth, pre-spring and sprung, pre-me liking her. I'm gonna put him in no, because he's not that bad, but like I also was just like, can we please get him off screen whenever he happened to be on screen? I don't know if y'all noticed the lighting change as I've been filming, but I'm by like a big, like open glass door. And it has gotten quite dark outside. It might rain a little bit soon. Not that that matters. I mean, most of what you're seeing is on a screen, like it's a screen recording. So it doesn't matter. I don't know. I kind of noticed it, and so I pointed it out. Anyway, this is the final ranking here. If we sort of take out the barely present tier, because like I have that tier for a purpose, but also I feel like it makes it kind of hard to see the ranking in totality, because you see like this big middle section that's like middle low, right? And you're like, oh, Rain dislikes all these characters. But like realistically, I'm just saying that they didn't get enough characterization for me to appropriately rank them. So these are all the other ones that I feel like actually merit being looked at. And when it comes to the characters that have like a decent presence on screen, realistically, I liked most of the characters. Like many of the characters in low-key hate them, maybe many is not a good word, but if some of the characters in low-key hate them are there because I think they fulfilled their role so well that it made me dislike them, which was a good thing. And there are so many characters that I genuinely really enjoyed, like so many characters that I loved or that I would consider like my favorite characters, so many characters that I think are good characters who have interesting plot lines or interesting characteristics. Like taking barely present out of it, I think really helps show the almost overwhelming positivity I feel towards the characterization of the Ever After High cast. Like when they got enough screen time, they were really fun and lovable and interesting. So like we'll let barely present be in there just so you can see the full ranking. But I would say this is overall quite positive. But that brings us finally to the end of the video. This has been a long one. I'm not really sure how much I'm going to be able to like edit in, edit out to make this a digestible length. It's going to be long either way, but I had so much fun getting to talk about these characters finally. Like I made the video being like, yeah, Ever After High had really good media, and I didn't talk about the characters intentionally in that because I knew I was going to make this video eventually, and I knew I'd want to talk about them here. And it just feels so good to get to gush about the different characters and the different reasons that I adored some of them, and like their arcs and their growth, and like the things that I loved, or even the ones that I didn't like, and like the reasons I didn't like them. I love talking about characters. I love character analysis. I'm a literature nerd. Like this sort of thing is just so fun for me. So this has been an absolute joy to film. I'm so happy to have like been able to get this all out of my system. Please do let me know what your thoughts are on the characters in the comments down below. I would love to know what you thought about my analyses, but also who is your favorite character and why, and like do you relate to them and just all of that stuff. I'm very, very curious to hear what you guys have to say, but I'm definitely done talking now. I need a water and some brownies. I'm kind of hungry for a sweet treat. So I'm going to go, but sound off in the comments down below. Would love to hear your opinions. I hope you were able to enjoy this video, whether or not you agreed with me. I hope you have a lovely rest of your day or your night or whatever it might be, and I will catch you in the next one. Bye, guys.